I might say that of all the topics that miracle students deal with, even long-term miracle students are have trouble understanding the how the guilt could be within them and they're not aware of it, that it has these effects and yet they're not consciously in touch with that. So it seems a little difficult to accept. And we'll try and address those aspects today. For guilt remains with us until it is undone, is what the Course in Miracles teaches. So in this session, we're going to be looking at what the Course calls the cloud of guilt. Guilt is like a cloud, it's temporary, and it covers the light within. There is the divine light within each one of us, but the guilt casts shade over that so that it blocks your conscious awareness of the inner light. And for this reason, for this reason, the ego fosters the use of guilt to obscure the light within you. Hello and welcome to Miracles on High Plains. My name is Jonica, and Susie is our reader for this session.
Guilt remains the only thing that hides the Father, for guilt is the attack upon his Son. The guilty always condemn, and having done so, they will still condemn, linking the future to the past, as is the ego's law. Fidelity to this law lets no light in, for it demands fidelity to darkness and forbids awakening. The ego's laws are strict, and breaches are severely punished. Therefore, give no obedience to its laws, for they are laws of punishment. And those who follow them believe they are guilty, and so they must condemn. Between the future and the past, the laws of God must intervene if you would free yourself. Atonement stands between them like a lamp shining so brightly that the chain of darkness in which you bound yourself will disappear.
Mm-hmm. So it's really important that we get oriented with this first paragraph before we go forward. What is the purpose of guilt? It hides the Father. It hides the presence of God within you. It, so to speak, if you were going to position it, the Father is above in your higher consciousness. Guilt is, and guilt stands as a cloud or a barrier so that your conscious mind doesn't, instead of seeing the light, sees the clouds. All right, so and therefore the ego seeks to preserve the guilt. And what are some of the symptoms of guilt? Well, they're mentioned, many of them right here. It uses attack, whether that be verbal, emotional, psychological, or just thoughts of getting even, getting revenge with someone else. It also, guilt is a form of condemnation. It is a judgment that finds someone else to be unworthy of your love. And it is situated on a timeline, always in terms of the past. Which is to say, we find people in the past to be guilty for various things that we hold in our memory. It's always situated that way so that the mind, in its confusion, reverts to what has happened in the past, reviews all that, and identifies who the guilty are. And this pattern of looking into your memory of the past to understand the problems and then identify guilt, this is the ego's law. This is its it demands, it's powerless, but if we yield to it, the ego demands that we remain loyal to this law of looking into our past, looking into the darkness, and looking for the explanation of why things went wrong. The motivation the ego has then is to identify the guilty and decide on their punishment. So punishment becomes the natural extension of finding someone guilty. Even in a court of law, once a verdict of guilt is rendered, the next stage is to decide what is the punishment. So these are the patterns, and they occur within the mind that is confused with the ego and is following ego guidance. And so all this becomes psychological. This becomes part of your private thoughts, your reflections in your own mind. So that's a dark experience, but it is, and it should be recognized, it's not a reality. It's a state of mind that is very confused. The truth is, let's go on to what we know to be true, that along this so-called timeline of past and future, there is always a present moment. Right now, we are in the present moment. And the laws of God operate there in the eternal now, the eternal present. It is a gift, and it's a continuous state where the laws of God operate. That's where your freedom exists. And all these laws of the ego that center around guilt, so-called, disappear in the present. They have no power. The laws of the ego have no power in the present. So that's where we would be free ourselves. That's where the atonement is found, in the present. It's the only place where we find freedom, happiness, joy, healing, the only place where we find miracles and holy instants are in the present. Okay, so we'll go on.
Release from guilt is the ego's whole undoing. Make no one fearful, for his guilt is yours. And by obeying the ego's harsh commandments, you bring its condemnation on yourself, and you will not escape the punishment it offers those who obey it. The ego rewards fidelity to it with pain, for faith in it is pain. And faith can be rewarded only in terms of the belief in which the faith was placed. Faith makes the power of belief, and where it is invested determines its reward. For faith is always given what is treasured, and what is treasured is returned to you.
In case that wasn't clear, Faith can be directed in one of two different directions. Faith can be directed towards innocence and healing and forgiveness and wholeness. This course is to help us to learn to continually direct our faith towards the light for healing and wholeness. But faith and belief can also be misdirected towards the ego's agenda, the laws of the ego. It can be get directed towards the past, making the past seem real, where judgment, condemnation, punishment, and pain are found. And if you find yourself in any of those states, know that what you've done is misplaced your faith into an erroneous structure which the ego would favor. And so this is bringing down condemnation upon yourself, putting your own mind and your own peace of mind in a state of flux and turmoil and chaos. We all know, because everyone has experienced this, what it's like in your own mind when you're torn and distraught by things that have occurred in the past, where either someone has done something that you find them guilty of, or also a variation on that is you have done something where you feel guilty for doing. It puts the mind in a state of turmoil, and this need not be. Susie?
Yeah, I just really want to say that I always get what I ask for, you know, and that's where I put my faith. And it's my responsibility. And that's just all I want to say, because this really hammers home. Like, you know, I'll say, well, I really don't want it to be that way. But then I put my faith in it, or, the opposite, because I don't have enough trust. And that's the truth. So, that's what I'm really focusing on a lot in my mind. Like, you know, it's almost like I know where to put my faith, but I don't sometimes. And then I get what I ask for. So this is just so practical. It didn't seem that way, but it's just so practical. And what's one of the characteristics of a miracle worker, and trust. So just trying to build the trust that the Holy Spirit really has my back.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, so Susie echoed something that's true for many of us. We know where to put our faith. We understand the principles of truth, but our habit or our inclination in the moment is we misplace our faith. We enter into the cloud of guilt. And what I have noticed in myself is often the first step in that direction seems innocent enough. I'll just reflect, oh, yeah, I had that conversation with such and such the other day. That didn't go so well. He really seemed to not like me. And then it goes downhill from there as my mind starts to explore it. So, one of the aspects of mind training is to recognize once you enter into a path of thoughts that to recognize where this goes, where this is headed. It's headed into what I think of as a tunnel of fear. And what we want to do is recognize that early on so as to stop, realize what's happening, and turn instead towards the Holy Spirit to release whatever judgments we may have made about ourselves or the other person, and instead to adopt the attitude of forgiveness as our own. So, learning to use your faith is vital to this program. Faith makes your beliefs into a powerful device. And so we want to learn to use the power of our faith well. This is something that very few people acquired growing up. They largely were not taught this, and they were unaware of the power of their faith and belief.
The world can give you only what you gave it. For being nothing but your own projection, it has no meaning apart from what you found in it and placed your faith in it. Be faithful unto darkness, and you will not see, because your faith will be rewarded as you gave it. You will accept your treasure, and if you place your faith in the past, the future will be like it. Whatever you hold dear, you think is yours. The power of your valuing will make it so. Atonement brings a re-evaluation of everything you cherish.
So this is not really a workshop, but if it were, we would do a little exercise right now. So we're going to do a very condensed version in about 30 seconds. And what I want you to do is pause here. You might close your eyes or open your eyes, whatever feels most comfortable, and identify a handful of attributes of how you would define the world. How, in your own terms, how you view the world. And try not to use your miracle training. Well, you I shouldn't say that. I should say, you know how the Course of Miracles would teach about that, but try to be honest with yourself of how you react to the world.
The real world or the world?
Well, you're right, Susie. I'm just going to leave it at the world and leave it up to each person to decide. Um, and if this were a workshop, we'd spend more time doing that. But along that way, what you will find is the world can give only what you give it. For by itself, the world is a blank canvas. It has no meaning apart from what you found in it and placed your faith in. The world means nothing by itself. Human beings come along and give meaning to the world. And that meaning can be aligned with the laws of God, which is the real world, or it can be aligned with the laws of ego, which is the world of guilt. And so this is a principle few people recognize, but we'll restate it again. The world in itself has no meaning. We are always attempting to place our own meanings upon it. And when we do place dark meanings on the world, know that this is an expression of guilt. This is what the cloud of guilt does. It casts a shadow onto the world and then looks for evidence that that shadow is justified, that it's true. And so it's an orientation, again, following the laws of the ego. What we want to do in this program to heal is recognize that we have the power to choose how we view the world. We have the power to choose if we make a mistake and view it in the shade of guilt, then we have the ability to change our mind. And so we refer to this in the course as what it is you treasure in your mind. The thing that you give your faith to is your treasure. And many have given their faith and treasure to the idea of a dark world for a long, long time. I'm fond of labeling this the evil world theory, labeling the world as an evil place. But what we're learning is that this is a choice. Whatever you hold dear, you will think is yours. It's because of what you are valuing, treasuring, cherishing with the power of your faith that makes it so. So, having said all that, we've all made these mistakes. This is why we need A Course in Miracles. And the atonement comes along and brings a new evaluation, a reevaluation of everything that we have treasured and cherished. It helps us to see that we've misplaced our faith and become confused by this sense. Again, guilt would be the cause of that, of misplacing our faith. And the atonement calls all that gently into question, causing us, inviting us to reevaluate where we are placing our faith. You could say that the use of the power of your faith is the most important responsibility you have. How you use your faith, what you choose to believe in, to value, to cherish. That's one of the most important responsibilities that we have. For that then commits the mind to a course and a direction that you wind up making all your decisions around in accordance with what you value and cherish.
Atonement brings a re-evaluation of everything you cherish, for it is the means by which the Holy Spirit can separate the false and the true, which you have accepted into your mind without distinction. Therefore, you cannot value one without the other, and guilt has become as true for you as innocence. You do not believe the Son of God is guiltless because you see the past and see him not. When you condemn a brother, you are saying, I who was guilty choose to remain so, and you have denied his freedom, and by doing so, you have denied the witness unto yours. You could as easily have freed him from the past and lifted from his mind the cloud of guilt that binds him to it, and in his freedom would have been your own.
Mm-hmm. So this is the gift that the Course offers, this gift of atonement, the plan of atonement, to reevaluate all the things for which we have placed our faith in the past. And this is a device that is used by the Holy Spirit that allows her to help us distinguish the false from the true, to distinguish illusions from reality. This is our primary mission, is to make clear to us in our mind what is worthy of our faith and distinguish between what is unworthy of our faith. It says that prior to allowing the Holy Spirit to guide us in this evaluation, that our mind accepted everything that we saw and heard and experienced in as real. And so if somebody hurt us, we made that into part of our story. And in so doing, we allowed the concept of guilt into our mind and believed that it was justified, that the person really was guilty. And that idea was stood alongside thoughts of innocence, but because we accepted both into our minds, our ability to evaluate them properly and distinguish them became confused, and the guilty seemed to be just as real as the innocent. And this is the problem. In lack of understanding, the illusions seem to be just as real as the truth. And so, again, the Holy Spirit wants us to be able to see the difference. And this winds up this inability to distinguish innocence from guilt impacts all our relationships. It impacts every encounter we have with others. Can you imagine meeting a person for the first time and they might be a perfectly good and well-intended person, but if they have some characteristic that we associate in our past with guilt, maybe their language or their dress or mannerisms somehow are associated in our mind with someone that we've held guilty in the past. Now we're very confused and wind up fearing that they too are guilty. It says here you could have just as easily freed this other person from the past and seen him as innocent. So this is the choice that the Course makes available to us, is whether or not we are looking for light and forgiveness and innocence in everyone, or do we allow those experiences, guilt from the past, to discolor our view of others? Susie?
You know, it's so interesting, Jonica. You asked before about the world and, love, inclusive, joining, kindness, justice, eternal. That's the real world. Anxiety, whatever, weary, destructive, dark. So, the world situation right now in the dream could be seen as very dark, and I can't hold the false and the true in my mind, right? So I found myself getting caught up in my posts, like the posts on Instagram, and attaching myself to reading about the world situation, and it just dawned on me, why am I reading that stuff? Robbing me of my peace. It's, so I put my faith in what I think is true, and I deleted my Instagram and my Facebook because well, I didn't delete my whole account. I just took it off my devices. So I can't look. And it's so the last few days I have like this peace and just, calm. And it's exactly what we're reading. And I don't have to make people guilty. And I don't have to do any of that stuff or having all these opinions. It's just going on in the world of form. So I don't want to choose to see all that. Anyway, I'm just wanted to share that because I'm just so much better off living in the world of the Holy Spirit. And she certainly doesn't read Instagram and all those posts and everything. So I just feel so much lighter. And I just wanted to share that because it just really fits with what we're reading.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm glad you did, Susie. Thank you. Susie said, I just choose not to look at all that. It's so simple, a choice of which is available to us all. I don't want to wrap my mind around what the media and social media are using to stir us up. And one thing I can assure you, there'll be more to stir you up next week and the month after that and the year after that. It's an ever continuous stream of activity. And they found that the more revolting or the more irritating it is, the more people tune in. And so put yourself on a diet for that stuff. I'm glad you are doing that for yourself, Susan. Because that's really the application of what we're talking about here. It's one form. We're talking about social media, and some people don't participate in it at all, but it has many other forms. Always, again, with reference to our past, always about the use of your beliefs and your perception, either that are either in accordance with the laws of the ego or the choice that the atonement would bring to us to use your faith and belief in accordance with the laws of atonement.
Lay not his guilt upon him, for his guilt lies in his secret thought that he has done this unto you. Would you then teach him he is right in his decision? The idea that the guiltless Son of God can attack himself and make himself guilty is insane. In any form, in anyone, believe this not. For sin and condemnation are the same, and the belief in one is faith in the other, calling for punishment instead of love. Nothing can justify insanity, and to call for punishment upon yourself must be insane. See no one then as guilty, and you will affirm the truth of guiltlessness unto yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well, this gets really right to the core of the matter. So the premise is here that for people that have not finished this program, who have not undergone total forgiveness, that they are carrying around within themselves a certain amount of guilt. And they believe that that's what they are believing to be true. They've misplaced their faith in it. And so when you encounter someone else, they have an unconscious belief that they are not whole and beautiful and full of light. They have an unconscious belief that there's something not worthy about them. And the role of a miracle worker is not to reinforce that belief, but to instead see them as innocent. So when you encounter someone, lay not his guilt upon him. It's his secret thought that he has done something guilty and is living a life of guilt. would you teach him that this is true? Not as a miracle worker. 4, if when you encounter a person, you support their belief in guilt, then you are reinforcing that your faith is also invested in guilt. And therefore, and this is the tricky part, you're therefore finding yourself guilty as well, because the idea of the belief in guilt is in your own mind. It's your thoughts that are testifying to the belief that guilt is meaningful, that it's real. Now, you may place it, tag it as being attributable to someone else, but the thought originates in the judgment originates in your mind that guilt is real. And in so doing, you reinforce guilt in your own mind. And it says very clear here, in any form, in anyone, believe this not. And so this is the major work of what I would call the first half of A Course in Miracles, is the undoing of guilt, to not be a believer anymore in guilt, which is to say, not putting your faith into the laws of the ego, the belief in guilt. It's a form of insanity, and it always results in a lack of love, a lack of appreciation, a lack of understanding, and more importantly, it blocks your awareness of the light within yourself and of the light within others. So, as if it was not said clearly enough earlier, see no one then as guilty, and instead affirm the truth of your own innocence within yourself by seeing them as innocent as well. I will go on record saying you cannot make progress within A Course in Miracles until this issue is dealt with. This one, it's like having a hole in the bottom of the boat. You just can't make progress until that hole is patched. And in this case, the hole is that your faith keeps on allowing guilt into your mind, and a lot of it is subconscious. We're not saying that you're always fully aware. By definition, the guilt has us in a cloud of darkness and confusion. So we're not often sure about where it's coming from or how it got here or even its nature. That's what the purpose of this session, and in fact, this chapter is to make us aware of where it comes from, what laws, the law of the ego, what laws it operates from, how it got here, and more specifically, what we can do to get rid of it, to believe this not. Do not believe in the guilt that other people feel about themselves, and do not believe in guilt you feel about yourself.
See no one then as guilty, and you will affirm the truth of guiltlessness unto yourself. In every condemnation that you offer the Son of God lies the conviction of your own guilt. If you would have the Holy Spirit make you free of it, accept his offer of atonement for all your brothers, for so you learn that it is true for you. Remember always that it is impossible to condemn the Son of God in part. Those whom you see as guilty become the witnesses to guilt in you, and you will see it there, for it is there until it is undone. Guilt is always in your mind, which has condemned itself. Project it not, for while you do, it cannot be undone. With everyone whom you release from guilt, great is the joy in heaven, where the witnesses to your fatherhood rejoice.
So we've often said that miracles teaches you your brother is the mirror of yourself. Well, that's stated here in terms of whether or not we see guilt in another's. Those whom you see as guilty become the witnesses, they testify that you are seeing through guilty eyes, that you are seeing the guilt, and therefore that guilt is in your mind, and you will see it there in your own mind, for it is there. Guilt is in your own mind until it is undone by the acceptance of the atonement. And so, where all this leads is we have to learn how to accept the atonement for ourselves. Today, we're dealing with the problem aspect of what interferes with our awareness of the light. The atonement will always be the solution. There's a key idea in this statement that if you would have the Holy Spirit make you free, accept his offer of atonement for your brothers. The key idea is to accept the atonement for all of your brothers. For, in other words, no exclusions. For, if you were to accept the atonement for 99 out of 100 people, and you still believe that remaining one is guilty, then that is evidence that you are still seeing guilt and witnessing to it, and therefore that it still resides within your own mind. So, to have the Holy Spirit make you free, you must accept the atonement, God's plan of undoing the ego's effects and for returning us to our innocent state. You must accept the atonement for everyone, for all your brothers. And then you will know that it is absolutely and totally true for yourself. You will be free of the dark cloud of guilt, and the light that has always been within will shine brightly. Excuse me if you can hear my landscape person. Can you hear that, Susie? Yeah.
Yes.
He'll be gone in just a second. He's just blowing the grass off the sidewalk here. There it is. Okay. So the issue then becomes that when guilt is in our mind, we will use it as a device of condemnation. We'll look for it. We'll look for witnesses to where the guilt lies in the world, and it will put us into a mode of judgment and condemnation. And then that will be so uncomfortable that it will get projected outward onto the world. This is why I asked you to write down the things that you see, how you see the world. It gets projected outward into the world. This is the evidence of inward guilt, is when it's, and so the Course will teach us. This is not what we're dealing with so much today, but we will get to it, is to learn to stop those projections of darkness out onto the world. Stop projecting a judgment of guilt or condemnation outward, know that anytime you do that, you're witnessing to that yourself and inflicting it on your own self. And when everyone whom you release from guilt, when you do so, that brings about the light begins to shine anew into our mind, and great joy is experienced as a result of seeing the innocence in others.
Guilt makes you blind, for while you see one spot of guilt within you, you will not see the light. And by projecting it, the world seems dark and shrouded in your guilt. You throw a dark veil over it and cannot see it because you cannot look within. You are afraid of what you would see there, but it is not there. The thing you fear is gone. If you would look within, you would see only the atonement shining in quiet and in peace upon the altar to your Father.
Mhm. Yeah, so guilt is somewhat, you have to give me a little freedom here, like a cancer. You don't want any of that in you. You want it all to be gone. So if there's one spot of guilt within you, it will block your own awareness of your inner light. It will interfere. You want to remove that. Um, and yeah, so what was the point here that I wanted to make? Our intent here uh, is that when you recognize guilt within yourself, what do you do with it? And what the Course teaches is the Holy Spirit is eager for you to bring your feelings and thoughts of guilt to her and surrender them into the hands of the Holy Spirit. So, and turn, she will exchange your judgments of guilt for convictions of innocence. Bring to the Holy Spirit thoughts and feelings of guilt and let her take them from you and give you instead reassurance of your holy innocence.
Do not be afraid to look within. The ego tells you all is black with guilt within you and bids you not to look. Instead, it bids you look upon your brothers and see the guilt in them. Yet this you cannot do without remaining blind. For those who see their brothers in the dark and guilty in the dark in which they shroud them are too afraid to look upon the light within. When within you is not what you believe is there and what you put your faith in. Within you is the holy sign of perfect faith your Father has in you. He does not value you as you do. He knows himself and he knows the truth in you. He knows there is no difference, for he knows not of differences. Can you see guilt where God knows there is perfect innocence? You can deny his knowledge, but you cannot change it. Look then upon the light he placed within you and learn what you feared was there has been replaced with love.
I always find it easiest within the Course teachings to begin with the highest truth possible. And that is that the Creator has given us, gifted us, the holy sign of perfect faith in our Father is a part of our being. It's a part of our spiritual divine inheritance. It is eternal. Nothing in this world can disturb that. It's the greatest gift. And guilt is the device the ego uses to obscure that, to try to keep us from that awareness. Um, the, so the ego would bid you not to look within, to look without, instead outside, and to more particularly look for problems in other people, things that you would criticize, condemn, complain, or judge against in others. So the ego would bid us to focus outward so that it can continue to allow this inward cloud of guilt to linger in our minds. And this is what we call being blind to the light within us. And that causes us to be blind to the light without us, well, the light within others. So here would be the great tell of unfinished guilt, a remaining guilt within our mind. If and when there is no longer any guilt in your mind, you will experience the light from within will flood your mind with feelings of light, life, and love and inner holiness. You will know of that truth. And as you look without, that's all you will see is light and life and love and holiness. That is the evidence that guilt is gone from your mind, that you see clearly. And anything that would diminish that perception of yourself in the world is a form of the cloud of guilt. And so this is a way of witnessing that there's work to do. We still have more to learn. We still have more that forgiveness can teach us. We certainly have need of learning to relinquish our prerogative of judgment and instead turn these matters over to the Holy Spirit and trust her for guidance in all these matters. I do have, that's as far as we're going to read. I do have a brief summary, but I'll be honest, I put it together hastily in moments before the meeting here. So I'll just, rather than us covering this together, I'll just flash it up here for those of you that might catch something that would be a helpful reminder. So let me just say in conclusion that this issue of guilt is the great weapon that the ego uses to hold us back, to keep us feeling about ourselves less than the bright light of the Creator, and then causing us to look out upon the world and seeing people as less than lovable individuals, less than holy innocents. And so once guilt is released completely into the hands of the Holy Spirit, the ego is gone. That is the end of the ego. And so this is why it becomes central that we be aware of how these laws of the ego operate so that we can disentangle ourselves from them, so that we can remove our faith from them. And as it said earlier, make sure that we do not invest our faith in any thoughts of guilt, condemnation, judgment, or punishment. That's as far as we're going to go today. There's a lot to all that. I encourage you to review it again on your own, and we'll continue to pick up on these themes in the next few sessions as we wrap up chapter 13. Thank you all for your attention. Susie, thank you for your reading, and may God bless each and every one of you. Namaste.
Okay, thanks everyone. Love you all. Thanks, John. See you tomorrow.
Peace and love.
Bye.